At 6:00 a.m., waist deep in the cold water of my own lake, chainsaw roaring in the morning mist as I cut down freshly planted no trespassing signs I sure as hell hadn't installed. The smell of gas fumes sharp against the damp air. I felt like I was defending a kingdom I had carved with my bare hands. 8 months of backbreaking labor, $67,000 from my inheritance, and 47 acres of swamp I had turned from rotting sludge into crystal paradise where families fished, kids swam, and for once in my life I felt proud of something that was mine, only to have this bleach-blonde HOA president roll up in a spotless BMW with a deputy in tow, claiming not part of it, but the entire lake belonged to her neighborhood association, saying I had been trespassing for months on land I had legally bought, cleaned, and paid for, threatening fines, and demanding I stop everything. I was ready to lose my damn mind, but she didn't realize I had receipts, permits, and every scrap of paper proving her so-called authority was nothing but hot air. And while she was playing queen of the cul-de-sac, I was preparing for war. Because 6 months earlier I was Dex Romano, 52, divorced, burned out after 23 years wiring houses in Bakersfield, and living under an HOA that micromanaged doormat colors and window treatments. A marriage that collapsed the same week I sold off my grandfather's construction business. She got the house and boat. I got my tools, my truck, and 180 grand from Gramps' estate. The most money this Italian working stiff had ever seen. And at 2 a.m. with cheap whiskey fueling my spite, I found a listing. 47 acres in Shasta County with what they generously called a recreational lake that looked like a crime scene. Brown, stagnant water, thick as pudding, cattails rotting. A dock collapsing since the Bush administration, the stench of skunks and decay choking the air. But I saw bones of something beautiful buried in that muck. So I bid $127,000 at county auction and won. Then nearly killed myself the first 4 months dredging, pumping muck, breathing diesel and rot until my hands were raw hamburger. But slowly water-cleared, solar-powered aerators I installed kept oxygen flowing. Fish returned. Bass snapped at lures like old times. Families showed up on weekends, kids splashed, biology students ran water tests, Miguel the fishing guide brought clients. And for the first time since my divorce I was building instead of just fixing, proof I could create something real. Until the devil herself arrived, Brenda Kowalski, 59, helmet hair, designer heels, an attitude sharp enough to cut steel, marching onto my land without invitation, clipboard in hand, announcing she was HOA president with oversight over community watersheds, slapping me with a citation and threats of $2,500 fines, then disappearing in her BMW while I stood there stunned, realizing I wasn't fighting a nosy neighbor. I was facing a bureaucratic storm, because within 48 hours inspectors from fish and game, water quality, and county planning swarmed like ants. Each one admitting they couldn't even find violations, but had to investigate thanks to anonymous complaints from Brenda, the diesel rumble of their trucks becoming my alarm clock. And though I had every permit and document, she was weaponizing bureaucracy, forcing me to waste time and money, until one inspector whispered that she didn't know squat about environmental law, babbling nonsense about community water rights. So I spent Saturday buried in county records, digging through boxes that smelled like cigarettes and defeat, and there I struck gold. Brenda's dead Uncle Eddie had built the lake in 1962 as part of gravel mining, meaning no protected wetlands, no endangered species, just a man-made pond, while Shasta Highlands subdivision skipped their watershed impact study in 1998, meaning for 25 years their runoff had poisoned my lake, not me poisoning theirs. So I photocopied everything and filed counter-complaints, turning every agency against her. Watching trucks invade her neighborhood to test storm drains while she scrambled, and neighbors grumbled about her emergency HOA meetings demanding $25,000 for legal counsel. But the county boundary meeting threw us into legal limbo when surveys conflicted, stalling permits. Yet Miguel reminded me that if lines were unclear, her authority was too, so I armed myself with documentation, just as Brenda launched a social media smear campaign, plastering fake environmental outrage, doctored photos, paid trolls, and a few gullible residents as her choir, tanking my reputation, making rental yards demand cash up front, my bank freezing loans, even the Ace Hardware guy ducking me like I was radioactive. And for the first time, I considered quitting, until Maria Gonzalez and her family thanked me with tears for giving their kids clean water and sunsets. And I realized surrender wasn't an option. So I launched Lake Restoration Day free family event with fishing DMOS, science lessons, laughter ringing across the water while Brenda sat parked in her BMW, watching her narrative collapse as living proof thrived in front of her eyes. And that's when 78-year-old Martha Pina arrived with an album showing the 1963 grand opening of the lake. And in the background stood a sign announcing Shasta Highlands coming in 1995, and a young Brenda scowling at the world. Proving this wasn't about rules or lakes. It was a 30-year obsession, a family grudge, and she'd been plotting takeover since Clinton was in office. Still, she escalated, firing off a cease and desist from Masterson, Craig, and Associates. Big city lawyers demanding I stop and pay $50,000 for improvements to HOA property, twisting it like I had renovated their kitchen without permission. And every local lawyer turned me down, scared of losing clients, until Peterson bluntly said Masterson owned half the developers in the county, leaving me alone, bankrupt if I paid, ruined if I fought, so I lived in the law library, wadding through California property code until I uncovered the loophole that saved me. HOA water rights require filings at both county and state level, and Brenda's HOA had filed county papers but never registered with the state water board, meaning their claim was worthless. And better yet, I had tax receipts proving I'd paid on that land for months, which trumps theory every time. And with that ammunition, Miguel connected me to Harold Brennan, retired judge, white beard, sharp eyes, a man who'd spent 40 years dismantling property disputes, a man who hated bullies. And when I laid out my case across his kitchen table, he leaned back with a smile that told me Brenda Kowalski had finally met her match. And I realized this war over my lake wasn't just about water or land. It was about proving that one stubborn man with the truth, receipts, and sheer refusal to bow could stand against an empire of entitled power and win.